I feel like that in 2019, I believe I was in a meeting, and there was a lot of, and that was kind of when we weren't for sure exactly, we had not looked into contracts and all that. And Mr. Armstrong made a comment to somebody that was pretty vocal against him. We don't have anything to worry about. And I believe it was from north of town, maybe northwest of town. Because they know what you guys are going to do. We've gotten this plan. And the people that we're listening to those, and we have no idea how many that is, other than possibly the number that's on the conference. So, and also, the supervisor of the wind farm that's coming up, and I never get this kind of straight, he's called. Whatever, there was a news report that the supervisor said they needed time to think about where they wanted. And I instantly thought, well, with us in East River, I mean, we're kind of down that way. The southern townships, you know, you're not, I think you've already decided that they're going there, that's okay. I don't know that if you had other people, the bigger farmers, north and northwest of us, accepting what perhaps you have had and you haven't planted in, as we did in plan for East River Township, Buchanan Township, and the townships south. Anyway, and then, oh yes, I had a conversation with a supervisor at the ID store. Nice conversation. I was surprised because, am I vocal? I'm willing to come out and speak. It was a nice conversation, and I said that we're going to continue to battle. East River, Township, they will be back. And 2 weeks later, I find out that this project is along 59 has gone quite a ways already. Would that not have been the opportunity to say, yes, you know, that there's a wind project being attempted in Page County next? So, the seat, I don't know, maybe I'll want me to melt down in the ID store, I don't know, but I just found that really surprising, and a comment that was made that the only money out there for counties, the eventual meeting was wind and solar projects. The only money for counties out there is wind and solar. So do we not know what this is all about? It's about money for the county. So you could have supported, for those of us here, maybe all these people that were on Zoom and people that were standing up there to speak up, you could have supported a moratorium. You could have changed the setbacks to property. And I'm not telling my neighbors what to do, but clearly we have supported setbacks from property lines and perhaps further setbacks. And so support us by suggesting, by making, I'm not going to say that, take that word out, insisting that the proper lights be installed on the wind turbines. Make demands for decommissioning. Look at this to support those of us that have constantly said no to the wind turbines. Because you are supporting, you should support that aspect of the community. They want in, make them do it the right way. Thank you.
Commissioner Swing, a lot of times we feel like the conversation just continues, and a lot of that's because we have public comment and then supervisors have the right to speak up, which that's fine. What I'd like to address this morning is the idea of the hypothetical. Last week, when the supervisors had a chance to talk, Supervisor Morris made the comment that I don't want to talk about hypothetical. At one point in time, this project that's going on in the Southwest was hypothetical. Now it's real. An ordinance, part of the purpose of an ordinance is to deal with the hypothetical. We live in a world right now where hypothetically we could be facing nuclear war. And so I'm glad that our world leaders are they're setting up for a hypothetical chance that we have nuclear war. I have car insurance because hypothetically I could hit a deer. Someone could rear end me. I have homeowners insurance because hypothetically a tornado could take out my house. I've never had my house taken out by a tornado, but hypothetically it could happen. I'm here to stand in favor of larger setbacks. I hope that as you guys discuss this, you will take the hypothetical into consideration because hypothetically, these businesses could come in and not fulfill everything they say they're going to do. Hypothetically, there could be dangers to properties if a turbine is too close. We have this at the upon us. We're in the battle, and if our ordinance is set up, in a few years, hypothetically, when and if there's a new project somewhere else in the county, we don't have to do this again because we have an ordinance in place that'll deal with those hypotheticals. And so I feel like we have to talk about the hypotheticals. In law school, lawyers deal with the hypothetical nonstop. It is important. And so I felt like it was shrugged off. I don't want to talk about the hypotheticals. I wish the hypotheticals had been talked about more before the ordinance was put in place. And so this morning, I simply stand here in support of larger setbacks that you would consider these things. I would also say that I was very proud of the group last week. I felt like the comments were very good. I felt like there were facts presented that were difference-making facts that need to be considered. We don't always feel like the facts are considered, and so passion and tension rises. Please consider the facts that have been presented. After we speak so often, the comment is made, well, present me some facts. Facts have been presented, compromises have been presented. Please consider this today.
It was a good time to hop up here and say this real quick, but I had to say it. Monsanto, GMOs, Roundup, GMOs have been very instrumental in the advance in yields in the agricultural community. And those who are in the farming community can understand that. However, Monsanto has been painted in a lot of the world as the face of evil, as an evil empire. And why? Because there's a lot of people who feel like they have been injured. A lot of these people don't have the ability to win in court. Monsanto, owned by Bayer now, does. They have the ability to fight in court. I guess it's gone to the Supreme Court. Very critical point right now for the lawsuits against Monsanto and Bayer today as we speak. I just say that to say that there's scientific evidence on both sides. There's studies done, both sides promote. And when we say, as Mitch alluded to, I need to have facts. Well, we can find facts on both sides to support the case. And it comes down to who has the money to fight. You know, to say that as I understand, a lot of these lawsuits within the turbine industry are settled out of court. the people don't have the ability to fight. So let's settle. And so as individuals, we have to choose which side we're going to support. Are we going to support what I'll call the baby establishment with the ability to promote and fight, or are we going to support the small person who does not have that ability? And you know, we've had first-hand witness from Dr. Evans in Ottawa County. We've had first-hand evidence from the fellow from Thornton, from Bedford, both established business people, well-respected in their communities, who say, this has really impacted my family, and we may have to move where we've already moved. I don't know how much more, you know, close to home evidence that we need to know that it's real, that this impact is real. So we need to consider that. And if I'm as a leader, I'm going to say, Mr. Vogel, Mr. Evans, I don't really believe what you have to say. That's basically what's being said. When one of you fellows said after the meeting last time, you know, there's just not been any black and white. I need to really have it proven to me. That just doesn't stack up. You're not representing the people.
Good morning, Sherry Hunter. The two things that I really want to talk about this morning are a little bit about the ordinance and also about compromise, you know, like middle ground, making, you know, good compromise. People have said this before, not both sides are not always happy or shouldn't be happy. There shouldn't be one side that's winning all the time and then one side that's losing all the time. So from my perspective, all the research and all the things that I've wasted, or maybe not wasted, energy on have been directly related to my family. And a lot of other people, you know, are looking into things that will do their family. And there's a lot of people that are, let's just be honest, nobody really wants to be this morning. Nobody wants to wake up early. Nobody wants to do all this research. Nobody wants to fight whatever portion of this that they're fighting. But we think it's worth it because we love our land and we love our families. So in relation to our family, as I've stated before, we do have some specific special needs. And this doesn't just include our property, but my parents' property as well, as we do enjoy to spend time there. So phobic and pattern-induced seizures is something that our son struggles with. And so there are certain precautions we always are aware of. He is on seizure medicine because even fluorescent lighting, if it's kind of going bad, will cause him seizures. He's had, even last year during his 4-H, share the fun, they had to shut the lights off so he could perform. Anyway, do you guys have any idea what color light is especially triggering to seizures? Red light. Now, there have been studies, safety studies done, and they're still doing studies. More research, more studies means more collaboration and a better assessing of everything. So, when they study the blinking red lights at night, do you know how many farms they studied? 1. Typically, they study 1 turbine too. And so I'm just going to let you know from our hill, because we have a very high hill, we see 6 farms blinking now. So that means different speeds of light, different times of being on, and there are those issues of overlapping and whatnot. So there's a pattern that's involved. When you have a son that's autistic, you know patterns are very important and rules are very important. When patterns get broken and rules get broken, it causes great anxiety. I don't understand why. It's just the truth of autism. So, in one study that I looked up, and I would also like to mention, I've been in contact with Invenergy, with Mr. Lamba, and I have, he said he could provide me with their research, health research, and so I asked for specific things and whatnot. Have not seen anything yet. So hopefully he'll get back to me with whatever they use, but my guess is he found the same things I did and doesn't want to tell anybody about it. So in the one study that is peer-reviewed from 2010, they did, it takes 3 flashes of light in a second to, and that's pretty quick, to cause a seizure, right? So large turbines, they move slowly. And even if they're going pretty fast, if they're between you and the sun, this shadow flicker isn't going to be fast enough. They have smaller turbines are at a greater danger because they can go faster. But if you've got 2 turbines causing shadow flicker, like was it Dr. Evans that said he had 2 turbines casting shadows, so that overlaps. So that makes that twice as fast. They didn't study that, and I just wanted to point that out. So they considered it that their risk was shadow flicker, and then they talked about that how far away it needs to be. That was a different study. So then a Graham Harding study from 2008 said yes, there is a risk of seizures from contrast frequency, marked space ratio, retinal area stimulated, percentage of visual cortex involved. Those are the scientific reasons why people have seizure risks. Seizure risk does not decrease significantly until the distance exceeds 100 times the height of the hub of the turbine. That's a long ways. It's a long ways. It says wind farms, the shadows cast by one turbine on another should not be viewable by the public if the cumulative flash rate exceeds 3 per second. Now, I want to know who decides that from everybody's property, and are we only protected within our house? Like, is whoever's looking over this, if it's JD, the engineer, or who it is, who decides that it doesn't have this? Like, this is proven research. It's not supposed to have this. I just want to know where the checks and balances are. And then I also looked at a study by Freiberg, 2019, 17 studies from 19 publications with varying methodological qualities were looked at, and they were able to say that this was, I can't remember, heterogeneous, which means it wasn't caused by bias. There was a 6% bias, and they studied that. The findings were concerning with sleep disturbance, quality of life, and mental health problems. If you have somebody with autism, they have a lot of mental health problems because of anxiety and just the world hurts them. Sleep disturbance. If you do not get, the greatest risk for epilepsy, do you know what that is? Lack of sleep, not being able to sleep. We didn't have to have Jared on medicines until, which people can bring this about too, I'm going to be honest, but we didn't have to have him on medicine until recently, but we have been, they just turned on that wind farm that's around Westboro, south of us, and it's really had an effect on him. Visually, a lot of our tree covers will cover it, but not towards the south, but there is something still that's bothering him. Yes?
I'm just going to say we're getting well over 5 minutes. So.
Okay, so I'll wrap it up. In this exact thing, it talks about impacts of the shadow flicker, typically only significant if they were 800 meters, closer than 800 meters or 1,400 meters. And that's 4,600 feet away from the turbine. It's like a mile, which is what we've been asking, that the people that do not want to be protected by a mile. They can sign that away. There are ways we can do this to make those that need the protection. I'm not the only one with an autistic kid. I'm not the only one with an epileptic kid in the area. And even if I'm not affected, I still think that somebody needs to be a voice for these people. Thank you.
On the farm, and this wind ordinance does affect us personally because we are in Washington Township. We have neighbors that have signed up for the wind power, but I love my neighbors. We get along great. But I brought you a visual to show you about property line. This is our farm, and I would invite you out. You're welcome to come out, and I would personally let you walk through it and see it. But this is our home. This is all of our land through here. And this is a hedgerow that divides our land from our neighbors, and our neighbor has signed up. So I had a measuring wheel, and then on my little walk with it. Took my 1,500 feet from my house and marked on the road where that tower would be in their field. And so we have sheep and cattle. Our sheep, I'm sorry, anyway, our sheep are in this pasture, which is right on that hedgerow. So I measured from our hedgerow to where that tower would be in their field, and it was 374 feet. So on our neighbor's property, the tower would be only 374 feet across the line from our property, which puts us in the danger zone of that tower. We do have an autistic grandson. Love my grandkids dearly, as everybody does. But that affects us because we want our grandchildren to come to our house and to be able to come to our house and stay. And we were very privileged to have them there all summer last year. I have no clue what effect this would have had on him. And where he would have gone, because he needed that for an internship. He needed to be able to stay with us. But our livestock is in this pasture, which is going to be 374 feet from a wind tower. I've heard that ice falls off of these things. I don't know. That's what I heard. And not that it matters to any of you, but that's the sledding hill too, and it has been for years. That's the hill that our kids have went sledding on, the grandkids go sledding on it. We've even had neighborhood sledding parties. But I know that's not. But I just want you to kind of understand 374 feet with that wind tower from our property and our livestock and our grandchildren.
There is a 1.1 setback to the property line, 1,500 feet to the residence, but at 1.1. So if the turbine is 500 feet, for example, it can be no closer than 550 feet from the property line.
Just 100 and some feet more. You still have 1,000 feet of what they're talking about,
Okay.
maybe on the ice zone or whatever.
Okay.
You're still
But we're still
a little further than that, but still.
We're still in a danger zone though, and this is our only shed that survived a tornado in 1979. That went through, everything else on the farm was gone. And the oldest shed on the farm, of course, survived. And that would be in that danger zone too, so. And the only time we live in that shed is during lambing season. And because they live in it. Thank you.
I have some stuff to hand out here for everybody this morning. First of all, and I guess to start off, I'm not going to blow smoke up anybody's skirt this morning and tell you that there's 400 names on that paper, or that there's 270 names on that paper. We have an exact count right now of 157 names, that is fact, on that paper. It took a citizen just 3 evenings to get 157 names. What I have handed to them is a petition of saying no to the Shenandoah Hills Wind project and to revise the ordinance. So for 3 evenings, 157 names of people that say they want you to revise the ordinance, they want to relook at it, they want to take time or say no and protect our county. And we are still getting signatures, and I'm sure if I would have had time, we could have gotten a few more here in this room this morning. So you have 110 landowners that have signed up, which the number of them too that don't even live in Page County, and these 157 people all live here in Page County and are trying to voice their opinion to you guys. I also would, sitting in the chair over there, and I listened to Sherry morning after morning and listened to people about their kids and the autism and the effects it takes on their family, and it appalls me morning after morning this morning that the only thing anybody has to say to Sherry is, wait a minute, your 5 minutes are up. That is appalling to me. Why, morning after morning, we have Sherry talking about medical issues, facts. We have a doctor standing here from Nottoway County telling you guys facts, and nobody has questions for these people. I mean, do you guys not have any questions about the medical facts that she was telling you, and concerns about her family? That appalls me. But the only thing we have to say is your 5 minutes are up. I tried to rewatch the meeting last week, but never rewatched it because I missed a lot of the supervisor conversation. I got 2 minutes into watching the supervisor's conversation and also had to shut it off for the fact that, once again, I'm going to use the word appalled me, that Chuck Morris said that there's no evidence of anybody being sued. Or that the lawsuit has won. I'm sorry. There's no evidence that a lawsuit has won against this. So you're telling me you're not willing to stand up for the people because there's no evidence that a citizen has won against a wind turbine. That's shameful. Very shameful. Your job is to stand up for these people. And you're okay with them having to sue a company and knowing that they're not going to win to protect their rights. And you won't stand up for them for that reason. And Alan, since 2019, once again, like I repeated last week, I've been coming to these meetings, and I would love to hear your voice and your opinion, because since 2019, I skimmed through the minutes, and I'm pretty sure I can only find there was once that you have voted against Chuck Morris's vote. So please, I want to hear your voice and what you have to say. And why did we put the ordinance in place in 2019 when there was nothing on the horizon of a wind project, but now you're telling us that we cannot change the ordinance or amend it because there's not a project and you can't see what's going on in the county? Why did we ever put one in place to begin with then? If that's what you guys are telling us now, that we can't do anything about it because you don't have a visual in front of your face. Some of the questions I have, and I hope at some point we can get answers for all these questions that people are asking.
Brandon Hunter.
Just say your name real loud.
Say last name is Hunter.
You're James Hunter. Okay, that's it. I just want you guys to introduce our kid. You know, he's one kid, he's our kid, and we'll continue to fight for him, as, you know, the other parents should too. But I just wanted you to see his face, and so, you know, when these things, if they go through and just you see these lights blinking, you might think of him and these other kids and all these issues we brought to your attention. I wasn't going to speak today, but I felt like I should introduce him to you guys. And then Sherry read all those things about the health, and I got to think about when we presented something to the health board, you know, I think a bunch of people involved, Jacob and Brian and Sherry, and it's a big old pamphlet. I don't think anybody looked through it all, and I don't know what that says about people and, you know, in charge of these things. And actually talk about appalling. What's appalling to me is these guys surveying, and they're surveying for birds and bugs, but they haven't stopped the houses to ask any questions or any issues or even opinions or whatnot. So that's appalling. It brought up the hypotheticals, you know, what ifs. I sent you guys an email, basically kind of a hypothetical what if. Okay, so what if they don't come? What's the worst that happens if they come back? You know, if we, you know, change the ordinance and they gotta come back. But on the other side, what if, you know, we talked about having insurance and all that, what if something really bad happens? I mean, like I said in the email, wouldn't we rather side on the safety and cautious than I don't have much else to say, but just consider it. Stick for residents.
I am Ed Hicks, my wife Angie, and our son Matt. This young man will be a sixth generation farmer in Page County. By the time his farming career is over, we will pay taxes in this county for in excess of 200 years. So our roots run very deep here. We have a lot of love for this country. I'd like you guys to step back, look at these setbacks. If it requires going and spending a couple of days at a residence that's going to be impacted or has one sitting over them today, I personally will put the bill for any of the three of you for a 48-hour visit. All you got to say is $500 or $1,000.
What harm would that do if you go to visit?
We just want you to have some first-hand insight in what is really taking place for these families. We spent 5 years on the Page Com building, longer than anybody wanted. I know you guys are tired of seeing all of us up here. We're all tired of being here. We've got chores to do. But like everybody else here has stated, we're the small man. We cannot combat Monsanto, Mid-American Energy, we're guaranteed to lose. We've had first-hand evidence of that. We have a high voltage transmission line that crosses our farm. Annually, we need 1 or 2 cows directly under the line. They say, not our fault. If you think it is, sue us. We've never spent the money because we know how it will end. A $1,500 cow is nothing to Mid-American Energy or Monsanto. It's a lot of money to pretty much all of the signature. We get tired of it all.
As leaders, you are in the process of disrupting people's lives, their livelihoods, their homes, and which benefits their sanctuary. I've been here after a long day. next. Your own one in prison battle. We've all heard stories about how it disrupts their sleep. They will not get a break from it. However, Chuck Allen, since you live in town and this does not have any direct impact on your life, how would you like to know for the remainder of your life that if every night you would get a call at 103, 223, or 348 asking from a family if they can come to your home and stay the night because they can't sleep due to the limits of their life? How would that affect you in your life? I'm sure you wouldn't like it. It's like a brand new baby. You're hoping that one day you'll sleep through the night. But you don't get that. Sherry wasn't it. Any of these other people don't get that. You don't get a break from it. You can't leave your home. You can't unplug your phone. The people will be calling. You will become the next Motel 6 in Dade County. And I'm sure you don't want to leave the light on for that. And as leaders of Dade County, it is not only your job, but your duty to do such. Be leaders. Lead by example. And Alan, last week you asked everyone to be respectful. And I witnessed that the audience was respectful as what you had asked. And however, watching you and Chuck, your body language indicated otherwise. You were looking at your watch, you were looking at your phone, writing and not making eye contact, and sitting back in your chairs like they were lazy boy recliners and very disengaged in what others were saying. And I appreciate you taking the time to let us speak and be heard. But I don't know 90% of these people. Because I want to stand up for that, because that is right. Doing right is not always the best, what not makes everybody happy. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And I'd rather you to be right and not happy. Because the rest of these people would rather be happy.
Thank you.
Bear with me, I do not spring forward well. I fall back much easier, so here we go. When I was in first grade, living on the same Page County farm that over the years Dad and Mom bought from Grandma, a tornado decided to visit. By the time Mom hollered upstairs, told us to get to the basement, the tornado had already taken out the barn, which was very close to the house. So we were very blessed that none of us were hurt. The barn was gone. It couldn't be repaired. So it was time to clean up the mess and build a new one. Of course, there were portions of the build that had to be done by professionals, specific contractors, but a majority of the rebuild was done with help from the community, from our neighbors. Late last summer, early fall, a lifelong member of our community, he was only in his mid-60s, but he passed away after a tough battle with cancer. What happened at harvest time? The community came together. Farmers from Page and Mills County gathered for a harvest week. Over 60 farmers came together with equipment to harvest his fields. And they were happy to do so. They knew if the situation was reversed, he would have done the same for them. These are only two stories, 59 years apart, that define our community, our county, its people, and their values. Our agricultural roots define our character. A farmer's job is really never done. If there are crops to be planted or harvested, livestock to feed, cows to be milked, work doesn't stop until that task is done. To generalize, we are a hardworking, dedicated, determined group of people. And this group of people should be supported with the actions of our Board of Supervisors. If someone needs help in our community, the neighbors show up and lend a hand without expecting payment in return. That's who we are. That's what we stand for. Yet, the decisions that are being made by the Board of Supervisors with the 2-to-1 voting history are painting a completely different picture of our county. The picture being painted is quite the opposite of reality. It shows us as money hungry and self-serving. Your decisions are supporting the energy companies and big business. They, meaning Invenergy, is requiring people to sign confidentiality agreements so they don't and can't talk to their neighbors or friends. This isn't just encouraging secrecy, it's prohibiting conversations between neighbors and communities. To my knowledge, not much good comes from secrecy and hiding. These are not the values that have shaped our character, our communities, and our day-to-day lives. As a gentleman who is a county chairperson in Iowa said at a supervisors meeting, and I quote, "Invenergy should be molding their project to fit the county, not vice versa." Let's make no mistake. They're here to put stuff in place, make tens of millions of dollars. They're not doing this to give us money. They're doing it to make money, and they're giving us some along the way. They don't want to have to abide by rules. End quote. This is evident when you consider that they have negotiated road repair costs instead of following their word and contract. They like to sue others when they don't get their way, which is what I found in my research, both in Iowa and in other states. Last week, a board member stated, if someone has a problem with the noise created from a turbine, they should call the turbine owner. Well, in Illinois, a family did just that. From January to May, the families contacted the turbine owner because the noise was too loud to sleep. The operators shut down the turbines 51 times. In May, they, which happened to be Invenergy, quit providing any relief. This specific turbine was 1,665 feet from their home. Is this the type of solution we have in Page County to look forward to? There's a 74-page report from Columbia Law School named Opposition to Renewable Energy Facilities in the United States. This report lists local laws and ordinance by state, provides a lot of valuable information on different ordinances that were created that stand up to big business and stand up to energy companies. This is a tool that could, and I feel should be used as a resource to generate conversations leading to compromise. In my opinion, a majority of us are not in favor of the divide and conquer approach that's being allowed, promoted, and supported in our county by Invenergy and our Board of Supervisors. As Warren Buffett, the owner of Iowa's Mid-American Energy said, and I quote, "I will do anything that is basically covered by the law to reduce Berkshire's tax rate. We get tax credit if we build wind farms. That's the only reason we build them. They don't make sense without the tax credit." End quote. At least he's honest. So it's not to lead, the purpose is not to lead the charge on climate change. It's not the hope to cut carbon emissions at any cost, which is what's being presented and sold to people. It's about money and big energy. I would like to thank everyone who has shared in person via Zoom, email, phone calls, their stories, their fears, their frustrations. Many of these people have been sharing with you and asking for action for 2.5 years. There remains many questions unanswered, documents dismissed, especially if they're not from Iowa, and compromise has not been discussed. This is an ongoing lack of support for voters who elected you and who have paid your salary for years. Thank you.
time, so I'm gonna say it one more time, just in case you haven't quite understood it. Saying it in a different way might help. And I've said a lot of stuff over, but anyway, from the beginning, when I called Chuck about wind turbines coming into the county years ago, he said that that's none of his business what a private company does with the landowner. It's between them. Of course, when he was part of a group that passed an ordinance, that seems like that meant he decided it was his business. And I'm not sure where the ordinance came from. We've heard it came from different counties, taking this, that, and the other, from the different counties in Iowa, and putting it together in an ordinance for Page County. Then you have to go back and say, where did those guys get the ordinance? I think an individual from Buchanan County, Missouri, has said NextEra wrote the ordinance for their county. And I'm suspicious that's what happened. And we fell for it. So, with that ordinance and the way it's written, it looks like Chuck's business seemed to be to work for the advantage of wind turbine companies instead of the small acreage owners and non-participating landowners. Told us to talk to our neighbors. We did a lot of that over in East River and Buchanan. And in that way, we found out that Tenasca told this neighbor this about this neighbor, and because we were communicating, we found out it wasn't true. So we caught them in lies, which I think seems to be a common thread with these companies. As was pointed out in a recent supervisor meeting, precedence is something to think about. Precedence. The resident was there first. In these wind turbine footprints, those residents were all there first. So to me, it just is so fair and makes so much sense that the incoming corporation that wants to scatter wind turbines all across the countryside, they should have the burden to talk to the neighbors. Not tell the neighbors not to talk to them. The fairest way to go about that, I think, in an ordinance, would be to set the distance of a wind turbine to a home at a mile or more. And then, if a landowner wants a turbine on their land, they're required to go and visit anybody around them that would be closer than a mile and see if they can get them to sign a waiver that says a turbine can be closer to a mile than a mile to their home. That's the only thing that makes sense, is to come in fair that way, is that the burden lies on Energy, not on us little small acreage owners. Have so many they found out the campus had no idea anything was going on. So I would encourage that thought on the ordinance to rearrange that for the favor of the landowner instead of Energy.
They will fall. I came across an article over the weekend, and I've been looking for this article for a long time. Back in 1990, the average height of a wind turbine was 131 feet. Fast forward to 2005, the average height of the turbine was 394 feet. 2022, they're at 500 feet. And the piece of the puzzle that I don't have, and I couldn't find it, is back in 1990, I want to know what the setback distance was. But I feel pretty confident that, well, let me back up. From 1990 to 2022, the turbine has increased in height 3.86 times. And I'm pretty confident that over this same time frame, the setback distance has not changed 3.86 times. I can't prove it, but I just feel like the setback distance has not been adjusted for the height of the increased height of the turbine. And that's basically, we have a setback distance of 1,500 feet. Obviously, that's not far enough. I visited a couple southeast of Claremont, Missouri. They've got 2 turbines, 1,300, 1,400 feet from their house. They can't sleep. I visited them a year ago in July. The turbines had been in existence for 4 months. And from March to July, there was at least 2 nights a week that they couldn't sleep because the noise was infiltrating the house. We heard Murray Thornton a couple of weeks ago. He's surrounded by 4 or 5, anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 feet. The sound is infiltrating his house. He's got a neighbor to the south, the same thing. The Hartke family from Illinois. They were 1,700 feet away from turbines. There was 2 or 3 close to them. They had a brand new brick house. Those turbines were in existence for a few months, and they had to move out of the house because the noise was infiltrating the house. This is a brand new brick house. Mike and Tanya Lamb in Adair County, they're surrounded by turbines. They can't sleep at night. So the point I'm trying to make, and I think what everyone else is trying to make, is the 1,500-foot setback isn't close. It's not even close to being far enough back. I ran across a couple studies that were done across the pond, and they were recommending a 1.25 mile setback from turbine to the house. And I know that Invenergy or Panaska or whoever else comes through will say that's too far and we can't build the project. My comment is, it's our county, not theirs. And if they come through, and I hope they don't, but if they come through and the project is done, you're never going to see Invenergy again. You're not going to come back and check on the condition of the neighborhood and see who's suffering, who's not. They don't care about us. They don't care about the next county they go to. In Worth County, Iowa, they put a project in, and their setback was 1,500 feet. Well, lo and behold, there were a number of turbines that were placed closer to 1,500 feet. So that tells you right there that they're not a reputable company to deal with, in my humble opinion. And in my study, I'm gonna kind of switch gears here a little bit. In Worth County, there's a new lighting system, ADLS. I think it's worth looking into. I don't know, Jay knows what it stands for, ADLS. So I think you need to put that into your ordinance. There's at least 5 counties that I've researched that have in their decommissioning language that the counties and wind energy company have agreed that a licensed engineer to the state of Iowa will determine the decommissioning cost. Don't leave it up to the, in this case, Invenergy, to tell you what the decommissioning cost is, because it won't be enough. There's a couple of counties, again, in the decommissioning agreement language, that have a depth of removal of 6 feet. Ours is 4 feet. That needs to be changed. 6 feet is not, still not deep enough, but it's better than 4. Decibel level. There's Dallas County has a decibel level of 30 at all times. There's another county, and I forget, I didn't write it down. There's another county that has a decibel level of 35 at night. Ours is 55. And to be honest, 55 is the highest that I've seen in the state. I mean, there's several counties that have 55, but that's the highest I've seen. Again, Worth County, their original setback was 1,500 feet. They changed their ordinance, they amended their ordinance. It is now 1,650 feet, or 3.75 times the height of the turbine, and that includes the blade, or the manufacturing recommended distance for the employees. Okay, that's fine. And I guess I can't emphasize enough that it's our county. And yeah, you guys are saying you don't want to control, you can't tell the landowners what to do with the property. That's very true. That's basically the only thing I agree with what you said. But the same governing body has an obligation and a duty to protect those people that can't protect themselves, especially on the setback distance.
Yeah. Go back to Worth County, you said 1,650 feet.
1,650 feet.
What's that from?
That's from foundation to foundation.
Foundation or
3.75 times the height of the turbine. And again, that includes the blade. Or
you know what that ordinance was changed?
got it back
That's
here.
what I thought. I get it. I got one. Thanks, Gary. Anyone else?
I'm back hoping the question and the thing to remove advice to issue. And I find it ironic and sad that when the people that you've been elected to represent ask certain questions relative such as reports and priority, they're not material, they're not rhetorical. They're directed. They're interrogated. You get no answers from you at all. And you just steamroll the day as the ship has sailed according to music. This is a difficult thing. For me personally, I moved off of Santos Ranch, small, 6,500 acres, onto this postage stamp, 6.5 acres for my granddaughter, in relative safety, to keep freedom alive, and in a rural area where there really are constitutional values, mores, the rule of law, and to see county supervisors bowing the knee or make the neck with the jackboot or something to a corporation and saying it's for the money of the county. The people of this county have spoken many times. It's not about money. It's about the quality of life and property rights and the rights, free will here. This is being ignored. And the rule of law does not support bullying intimidation. It does not support people ignoring the voice of the people that were elected. The representation that you are supposed to follow through on is legitimate. It's an expectation we have. And we do have them. You believe that you don't have any need to listen to people when it suits you, or when you have made a bad decision or two in years past, and you've decided that you are not willing to walk back a bad decision or find a compromise because you think that there is no recourse for the people. There is recourse. And as elected officials, you know that. Maybe you just forgot. Perhaps you just forgot that you represent us. So, I'm just suggesting that you choose carefully what hill you choose to die on. That what side of history do you want to be on? Because you have a legacy here. And it might be a 10% teapot in the big picture, but here is where you live, not just where you live. This, if you are spiritually discerning at all, you might be aware that this is the season for exposure of corruption, for exposure of injustices, that this is a time for justice and for payback. If you are not aware of that, be advised that that is what is happening. And when people run through these cycles of injustice, and then there is a time when things get, what goes around comes around. When that happens, then the paybacks are not pleasant for the people who choose to compromise their morals, their ethics. I asked questions in the past, all these people have asked questions, and we never received any answers. We just received a brick wall side. And this is probably where that should start. Maybe we need to start responding in a positive way and giving back to this community that put you in the position of authority that you are in. It is your choice, after all. But we have choices, and we will exercise them.
Anyone else for public comment? Can I make it brief? You got 2 minutes. Very brief.
Ed H. once again, 2 questions. As we stand here today, what is the maximum allowable height of a wind tree in the ordinance we're looking at? We don't have.
I don't believe there is a maximum height.
And that's one of the things we'll be talking about as we move forward too. So, to make sure that that is covered.
If I could get some information as we get a little further, could I take this to an aerodynamic engineer and get some information for you gentlemen to look at as far as tip speed in miles per hour, on how far it can possibly clean ice or something? Thank you guys.
You bet. You bet. Okay. This time we'll, sorry? Oh, you'll come over here. Oh, okay.
Gibson. I don't know that this particular issue has been raised before, but as a frequent user of the Wabash Trace, I'm concerned about the issue of setbacks on the trace and what
arrangements with what the ordinance says at this point, that all of the parks and areas, we have a 0.5 mile, half a mile setback. Now, I feel almost guilty bringing up the issue in light of concern for property owners who will be living in the footprint of wind turbines. The Wabash Trace is a movable park. There are people from all over the country that come in and use the park and enjoy it, and enjoy the peace and quiet, the opportunity to be in nature and do bird watching and with wildlife, and just see the beauty of our county. There are 6 landowners who own property along the trace in Mount Morton and Lakeland and Colfax townships. None of those landowners, 2 of them are out of state, 4 of them live in the county. None of those landowners are themselves who would be living in the footprint of the proposed wind turbines. So I would like to encourage you to look at that as you look at the proposal that's brought to you, and let us know what you're proposing as far as protection of the church property, which is owned by the county.
Okay. This time, I think public comment is ended. JD, engineer's update.
Good morning, JD Games, based out in here. So this afternoon, be brief. We have blades out all along the 4 trucks, primarily on the roads that have been ground up. We're using a slightly smaller gradation to help tie it together better. We're still cutting trees and brush. 1/10 of an L. Island, brush off Big Center, down the east of Blanchard. I did share the crews in the flag drainage today in Melissa. Looking forward to projects out on the road. We're fixing stuff within the shop. We gotta wait on a service guy to come in and work with a valve on our skid steer. On the engineer side, we're doing project development, text up at Boone Community College, or the BMAC facilities at Boone, doing some training. Still working right away to B61, and we're going to have a county 5-year program, CFYP for the next one. It's due the 15th of April for the DOT, and we'll talk about it later this month. Of interest, and doing some revision to it, moving forward. The Essex Bridge on Baker Street, and also B61, the bridge on Baker Street over the camp. Questions from you? Thank you.
Hold on. We're gonna go over something. Last week it was said that, there was misinformation given on the deal with Amending. You came up here and spoke.
Okay.
I said I'd go back to the record, we're gonna go over the record right now. We're gonna clear that up right now. We're them facts. There's the minutes from the meeting. Here's a transcript of 3 meetings. I'll go over the next facts. Transcript of the actual video. There's the actual minutes from the meeting. The minutes from the meeting. There's the transcript. I'll go over this. Pretty important, I guess. You came up here last week to clarify this and wasn't complete.
Okay.
Okay, so what I said last week was, when I was going on and on about this again, was that there was some misinformation in what I was saying. So, what we need to do is go to, just specifically, I need a home. Okay, is that good? Can you do the transcript?
Yeah.
Okay. Very simply, in the minutes here, just to go back and read that first, very simply. Let's see here, on the motion by Hertzberg, second by Armstrong, the board moves to approve the signing of the road use agreement with Contrail Wind Project. King stated the original road use agreement was signed earlier this year. This would be for J55 to Teague Avenue. The road was ground up, which was about 59,000. The company said it was too high, and they offered half that. But they've now agreed to pay 40,000. Now, there's more to it than even that when we get to the actual everything we said, but that does summarize it. The original bill was for 59,000, it was for 43 for grinding, and then 16 or whatever for gravel. Now, you go to the 12-8 meeting, what was exactly said, it's such a big deal what we're dealing with here. And I was accused of spreading misinformation and trying to paint them a bad light. Well, we're gonna exactly hear what we said. The thing I did not remember correctly was that I voted on. I was elected and not sworn in. I came up and spoke on it, and I think I talked about it since then, but I did not vote on it. So I did remember that incorrectly, but the numbers were all correct. And your own word is going to say what happened here, and I don't know why last week was so confusing to us as what happened. But, this is the 12-8 meeting. This is minute 20 and 50 seconds. You will watch it on YouTube. We signed the original road use agreement earlier this year in March or April. The stretch of the road on J55 from the quarry to Teague Avenue east of the county line was included on that road use agreement. Of course, they told us it was mainly used for the substation. However, more traffic went across the route than only working on the sub. I would say the majority of the rock on the Taylor County project and the sites of the construction roads all came out of Shamball. Lots of them went east on J55. The official way they were supposed to go was through Braddock up 71 over to 2 Taylor. So I believe that while J55 was not in pristine condition prior to the work, their traffic did degrade the road. To that end then, this fall we did grind it up, replaced rocks, smoothed it up for winter. As we discussed here, the cost of grinding was $43,000. So I sent, when it was time to resolve the matter, I sent the bill for $59,000, which is the grinding and the rock used. They naturally protested. The magnitude of that I did think was excessive. The magnitude of that I didn't think was excessive. It's what we spent on that, just that little fix, a temporary fix. They came back at about half of that. I said, well, that's not, I can't sell it to anybody. This is JD speaking. Less me, and they got a hold of the project manager out of Chicago, Justin something, and came up with a number of 40,000. So basically, we're going to get the grinding part back. I anticipate, and this is JD speaking, should the wind farm construction occur in Page County, there'll be more traffic on the roads, and there'll be another road use agreement, and we will learn some things this go around and do more documentation of the damages and operations. But this is what we have for now. Then Chuck said, well, JD, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, and certainly JD's point is well taken. The road was not pristine before they started hauling truckload after truckload. They did. They beat the heck out of the road. But to me, 40,000 seems like it's reasonable. I mean, I don't think it's unfair. I don't think we get hurt with that. There's going to be, as JD mentioned, another road use agreement on there when construction starts in Page County of Wind Farm. I don't know how we know it's going to start. So, and the road eventually, once any and all construction complete, is going to be written nicely. I don't know how we can see that they're going to do that. They didn't do it on a very simple example. here. JD said, correct. Chuck said, we're going to. It's not going to remain rock, as we stated here before. So anyway, to me, the 40 grand is reasonable, takes care of grinding, which we were going to do anyway. I came up to that meeting, and I did speak, and I said, just a question here on the road use agreement on when term is being paid there. They did not do what they were supposed to do. They broke. They were supposed to go through 71, go around, and they didn't. Why and how does that agreement work? Why would we give them a break? Why is it up to them how much they pay? If our engineer says they messed up $59,000 worth of stuff, why are they dictating to us what they're going to pay? Chuck said they didn't want to pay anything. They were proposing, this is Chuck, paying nothing because that was not part of, I kind of put in there, well, we didn't have an agreement, a road use agreement. Chuck said we had a road use agreement, but they said they didn't use that they used the other route. And we said, no, that's not true. I said, so we just don't have the proofs, so that's where that they did the wrong thing. We don't have proof, so we can't hold them to what it cost. Is that what you're saying? Chuck said, well, the road was going to be ground up, was planned to be ground up for a number of years. I said, I just know whenever I don't abide by something I agree to, it costs me money. And it's a question, I hope that it seems like a little bit of folly here. I hope that going forward, if they're building, they're not able to, destroy the roads and not be held accountable. That's okay. Now, we go on, what happened here the week before, or last week, is what this is, just last week, I got told this misinformation. I kept saying, this other county warning issues. People, this is from the last week's meeting. I'm getting warned by all these counties, and I said, they're balking on paying their bills like they did to us. They did not pay what we asked them to pay. Chuck said, stop please for a minute, JD, you need to come up here, I want to clarify this issue because it's misinformation. I stated over and over and over again, it was around $60,000 in our minutes this week that we're going to approve here a little bit. And I said, go ahead, JD. And Chuck said, JD, we had 43, as I remember, $43,000 of damage for grinding up the road, which was not pristine before they started doing it. And I asked, did they break the agreement? Chuck said, I don't believe. I said, yes, they did. He'll tell us they did. Chuck said, when it comes to the road, yes, they broke the road agreement. I said, there you go. Chuck said, we get accused of not listening to those two-way streets. So that's right. Go ahead, JD. I said, remember what I heard. We have the minutes. They didn't follow the routes they were supposed to take, right? JD said, but we have other examples of hauling outfits, and sometimes they do things like that. So we spent $43,300 on grinding up J55. We asked them to send us a $40,000 check back. That was not the whole story. This was last week was told. Jacob, I said, do you remember I voted against that because it was a lot higher than 40,000. The number was about 60,000. I voted against that. I would not have voted against it if they paid the whole thing. I sat here, and JD said it was a delta of about 3,000, meaning 43 to 40,000. I said then, yeah, it was about a $60,000 deal. We can go back and watch the video. So in the audience at 64,000. I said, yeah, there are minutes, and there are all these neat things, so we can go back and watch it. JD said some of that was also ground up for other projects too. And I said again, I very clearly voted against that based on that they did not do what they were supposed to do, and why God's green earth would we give them a $3,000 break. When I break a rule or contract, it costs me money. And it costs me every bit of that money. If I speed, I'll give me a ticket, I've got to pay the ticket. Chuck said, then should we start sending bills to the quarry and truck drivers? I said, we had an agreement, that's the thing, we had a written agreement, and it's we get caught doing something we never had an agreement about. Okay, we had an agreement. Then they sit up in here in this court or room and they lied to us. And that was the end of that section. So a lot of reading there to try to say, one, I think we proved they broke the agreement. Is that true? The road use agreement we had?
We have a road use agreement somewhere?
This is the one from 2019 or whatever, or 20, or whatever that we made them pay based on.
Well,
I've been told over and over, we have a road
we've established that they didn't.
And the number was,
Route was in the-
and it was not 43,000. There's an agreement that they're supposed to go around. You said that. I just read that. You said, you told me this. So if we don't, then you tell me something wrong, then we'll list it. And it was not 43,000. 43,000 wasn't grinding. You asked for 16,000 to put rocks back after grinding. Extra 59,000, of which they offered, they didn't want to pay this, which I said, then they offered half. Is that correct? Which would be 30,000. And then they settled at 40, and then the board accepted that. 40 of 60, 59, right?
Right.
Last week you told me it was 43, and I was.
Well, that's the bill for the 43 was the bill for the.
And I went on and on about 59, 60,000, and I was treated like I was spreading misinformation, and I was not. That was not misinformation. So this, it's easy to forget things, and I don't want to say anything. I forgot that I wasn't voting on it. I was speaking on it myself. It didn't seem like I was, but the numbers were all correct.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, right here, correct. And that's what I just want everybody to know that. It was about $19,000 that was not paid of a temporary minor fix. We didn't ask for a concrete road. It was a grinded up with rock. And I want to make sure that's on the record and that's all there. Do you disagree with any of that?
No.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure it's known. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Okay, John, discuss the ARPA fund request for Pioneer Park.
Hi, I'm John Schwab, Page County Conservation Director. As you know, about 2 years ago, we started with put on in Pioneer Park. This was because we were listing it as a fishery. It wasn't deep enough. DNR wouldn't restock the fish. We tried to get outside bids to come in on it. We all saw that those numbers were, well in excess of $250,000. So we started working on it within our department. Pretty much we've got everything done now where we're at the last 4 steps. We burn off the vegetation, patch the pipe, redo the shoreline, and then dredge the bottom. We've bought a dredge for within the department, so we'll be able to cover that. The problem that we're at is when it comes to the shoreline, re-rocking and armoring it. We did reach out, we got some bids, the cost would be about $40,000. So if we could get $40,000 from the ARPA funds, which is what we're requesting, we'd be able to cover everything in line with the project.
This will have it dredged out. Everything's going to be completed for come back in.
Correct, because we'll be able to do everything except the shoreline re-armoring, which is what we're asking for.
Do you have additional budget for restock?
Yeah, DNR will come in and that will cost us, they already signed it.
Well, from your conversation with other conservation departments, the ARPA funds is definitely a qualification for this outdoor recreational use. It fits right into the scheme of what those were designed for. I contacted the advisory committee and I only heard back from one. So I'm assuming that nobody had any real major concerns one way or the other.
What was the feedback?
They just weren't sure if it was necessary to do, but yet they didn't have any negatives. They just didn't know if the outdoor use would be the perfect use. But they weren't against it. They just weren't sure. And we discussed it quite a bit, and I know where the park that's been used over the years would be a real blessing.
What was the total dollar?
40,000. Have you contacted the city of Shannon to see if any of that rip wrap out there that they busted up concrete to be used?
A lot of it we can't use because it's not clean, it's got rebar.
Okay, that's what I figured. That is. Okay.
When would you be able to do the work?
I talked to the contractor, it's a local contractor, he actually had reached out to me when we talked about it last year to find out, if we did get it, when we could start, so that part will start probably very quickly.
Now, with ARPA money, doesn't have to be bid.
Not under 100,000. At least that's what, I might defer to Carl, but it's 100,000 the threshold on public bids.
I think it does. I have to.
The 40,000, like, a couple of local guys, but, it's not 4,000.
I mean, we can re-put it out again, I know we
You
put
put
it
it
out,
out only one person bid.
we put it out last year, we only had one person did it.
So it was put out.
Well, I think, the ARPA talk at ISAC or Alan meeting ago, Jacob, you were there, and, the recommendation from ISAC is to start allocating these dollars. Congress had a clause last Wednesday in the bill that was going through, that was gonna claw back any unobligated dollars. And, you know, on one hand, that's maybe good, reduce the federal debt. However, problem with that is, it gets spent somewhere else. So, I make a motion to approve the request for the use of ARPA funds for the purpose of getting Pioneer Park back where it needs to be.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in
The
favor?
only discussion on the
Okay,
thing
sorry.
real quick is, of all the, we're gonna spend so much probably each area to try to spread this around. Is there other big conservation things, or is this pretty big?
This, right now, this is our big one. I know we're gonna, I mean, in complete transparency, Pierce Creek has the same issues that Pioneer has. It's just Pierce is on a much larger scale. And Pioneer is kind of with our new dredge and everything, it's gonna kind of be the test run. So if we can get in there and, you know, really learn our dredge. We won't be able to dredge all of Pierce Creek, but we'll be able to get a lot of it. That's kind of our other big project right now, so in Pierce's watershed.
As far as the ARPA money, this is your main.
The ARPA money, this is, yeah, this, we've looked at all our projects, this was the one we would approach to ask for funds for.
Okay, the motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, signify. Aye. Aye. Okay. Get it going.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Yes, stay on.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Conservation Board comments regarding Golden Hills RC&D.
Yeah, our conservation board meeting last week, Golden Hills RC&D came, pretty much gave us the same, or very similar presentation to what they gave you guys. We talked about it, our board does feel that it would be a definite resource that conservation would use. We were kind of looking at it as more of an investment than just paying for, okay, we're going to pay for a product. They definitely be able to help us out with grant writing. That's something that we really struggle with, is we'll be able to get the grants, but the part that really stops us is when we have to match that extra funds. It's a 50-50, especially larger projects. So we feel Golden Hills could really help us with that. And looking at it, you know, in total, they're asking for the $15,000, you know, higher per year. We look at it as, you know, they can help us find $15,000 of grant money. So our board is very supportive of the idea.
Okay.
A little more information on that. In Harrison County, a similar project occurred, $15,000 was spent, and they found $700,000. In reality, is a building conservation center. Now, there's no guarantee that'll happen here. And then the other thing, I had several people say, well, didn't we hire John, or didn't the Conservation Board hire John to write grants? And that's true. However, we're in a historic time with more grant dollars available, probably at any time in our lifetime. These grants, as a result, are pretty competitive. Golden Hills has a lot of connections that we don't have. And after a year, you know, there may be a question, would we continue the next year? But probably the beauty is, if we're not in a situation to fund it a year from now, the templates and connections could all be built during this year that would give John additional tools, Conservation Board additional tools moving forward. So.
And we would certainly still try to get grants through our department too. We're not just going to stop.
So there are money grants that don't even match.
Well, not necessarily, but they have probably more connections than we have with Iowa West Foundation, with that would perhaps help with some matches. Several foundations that they've worked with, and then they work with SWIPCO, our council of governments on some additional projects that could unearth some other private partnerships.
It's just like you said, we don't know if we're gonna perform, and if we spent $15,000, a match of $15,000 grant, we have 30.
Yeah.
Correct.
You know, just if they do nothing for us, we can have 30,000. But if other counties have great success, I just, they wanna make us some guarantees.
No. Well, I'd make a motion that we, well, it's not on.
Yeah, it's discuss approved request.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I make a motion that we approve the expenditure from Golden Hills RC&D to assist Page County Conservation, and, once we get to discussion, there is a side. I make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Discussion.
The side discussion is there could be other uses besides conservation. You know, the infrastructure dollars that are flowing from the federal government won't automatically flow down, and the partnership that Golden Hills has with SWIFTO might help us be in a better position on some of the dollars.
Since it's a 12-month thing, it's a trial, let's see what success it has.
We talked about different ways of funding that for 10,000. Any thoughts on what the preference would be?
My preference would be out of the local option. That'd be my preference, because I think we'll have a lot of potential ARPA projects that would conserve as much of that. We saved at least $40,000 with the digitization was in local option.
I wonder if only thing a local option is that can be used pretty freely, is it a secondary road in places, right? Maybe that, where the ARPA money was kind of got,
It's more, yeah.
we couldn't use it for a road or do something like that, for a grader.
Yeah.
Or we around and say, maybe save that money to try to divert money.
No.
We can't use the ARPA funds for a jail.
For a jail.
If we were rebuilding, if we were remodeling our jail, we could use it. Not rebuilding.
The local option is more free money than ARPA money is. I think I would call them. We just did a bunch of our money out here for it too, so.
But I mean, that would be my preference.
You want to include that in the motion?
Yes, please.
Okay.
The big concern is I'm really worried about roads.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find money to put roads on. For every inch of road we fix. So maybe, I don't know if we'll understand all this, but I think I like the idea of better just saving that local option so we can apply to this, apply to something that we can't spend our money.
I'm not sure.
That's getting a lot more open.
Yeah.
What they said at the meeting.
It should be fine.
So how about, you prefer ARPA? Let's make sure that the final rule, the third final rule allows ARPA funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it allows ARPA funds with no question, we can go that route. If not, we can use a little option. We'll have some time to clean it out and Jimmy will get that figured out. Okay? I'll talk to Melissa about that. Okay? So the motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Next item is up to discuss, approve, amending ordinance 2019-2.
What I did was, they all talk about, there's some,
Yeah,
I just think some ideas that are taken out.
So the same thing.
Yeah, it's all things, I don't know if it's or not, but it's just a quick read through the ordinance. Quick read through there, the ordinance, we were talking about last week, and look at what I kind of typed up here, it'll take a little more time to do it. In that section that is about setbacks.
Yeah, you can print it out, Chuck, the ordinance.
Yep.
I think I've got a printed out there. We're gonna get some copies here too.
But that section, is, that I tried to do last week as we were sitting here. I basically just tried to change the wording, the max wording they had, to change the distances. You read that there, and I just picked the number as between the two numbers, because a lot, so one has like 3.75 or whatever, North County is, which the time of height makes a lot of sense. They build short turbines, they don't need very big setback. They don't have, if they have some turbines 30 foot tall, they don't need a 15-foot setback. So I put in there 3.5. It's each wind turbine being located in the tower shall be set back from the property line a distance no less than 3.5 times total height or 1,500 feet, whichever is greater. Affected property owner may waive the setback requirement by executing a written waiver of board agreement. I tried to keep the lingo really similar to the lingo of there as well. It seems to be okay. Now this section 3A is just to go over these things. I added, it said they should not exceed 55 decibels during the day. I added during the day. And I put 35 decibels at night. That's just a suggestion there. Of course, Dallas County has 30 decibels. I don't know what that says. The feeder lines and everything that jumped off of me, they're 48 inches right now. I think 5 feet. Most tiles vary to 4 feet. Most things vary to 4 feet. Plumbing and all that. I think it'd be nice if they were lower than that. At least 12 more inches, 60 inches with a tracer wire. And some counties have this, and I like this. A third-party inspector can be called the county's direction and the developer's expense to confirm locations and depth. Something of that nature to make sure they're actually putting it in. Public right-of-way kind of jumped off there. I mean, it's 1.1 times the height. I really believe, and I've read things, the ice can go farther than 500 feet. That's not very far. Especially if it gets to be a 600 foot tall wind turbine. So something bigger than that, just for road sake. Just something to make them back a little farther. Whether it be 2 times the height, I don't know. Something that gives the road some protection. And of course, the lighting, I got this from, I think it was North County. I just put the same thing because they have it all spelled out, the ADLS lights and the requirements. I kind of just put that on there to look at. So the two that are probably written the most in ordinance form completed would be the 11C and on the property line setback, and then the lighting is just totally out of ordinance because they have it all spelled out. Maximum height is a big deal. People talk about. I don't have anything on that. I mean, that'd be very simple. Shadow flicker, I think, is a pretty big deal, as Sherry pointed out. Dale said licensed engineer to determine decommissioning costs, third party.
I thought that was an interesting one that we need to investigate more.
Some third party.
Yeah.
And Wabash Trace is another interesting.
Yep, yeah. And then also the depth of removal.
Yeah, 6 foot. So that's all I have. I just typed it up. That's what I've got.
The lighting issue, I have a concern about the county putting a lighting spec in the ordinance until I know more about the ADLS and how wide. My fear is if we put that in the ordinance, then the liability shifts. If it fails, if the light fails and the plane hits it, then when it comes back on the county, would be my question.
We have a lighting section right now.
It's got to be lighted.
Or you have the aircraft lights or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, if we call for a specific system, I wonder if that shifts liability back to the county.
Well, they could quit working. If it's an approved system, it quit working if you're on the person who owned it. If it's an approved system.
I mean, that'd be a question. That'd be a question. If you tell somebody, if we get into if we tell a builder, here's a spec, have we shifted liability? I don't know.
Especially if the spec was not approved. Yeah, if it is, I think it'd be all right. That'd be a good legal question.
about tile liner, but we talked about, the installation of the electrical being mapped out. We're using GPS
Yes.
on all the underground wires, and that's, point to something we're thinking with what happened over there.
Yeah, down there,
Like the chat, so.
yeah, in Nottaway County, my brother runs a farm that, the wire's 3 foot deep. Just found out the other day, they were in the repairing, working on the turbine, oh yeah, 3 foot. And they were out there ripping. They put a river ground around that thing. And we're not bringing in the food, we're not being serious, not electricity.
Yeah.
So, well, interesting, as I asked you last week, I'd really like to have this study, but I think these issues are issues that are valid for discussion, but I would prefer to have that discussion with legal counsel.
I know that the concern about the trace has been passed on, and they were going to make sure that that was protected, and that has been passed on, so I want to keep that in the forefront of all the super planning.
Well, is there, so there's, I tried to grab basically very simple things here. I know there's all kinds of things.
And I do believe the park board, the conservation board, wanted to, talk about a mile. I think that Mary Ann mentioned half mile, so on the trace, just what we did.
Yes, all parks that are not listed are half a mile. So they would like that every mile.
Correct. And I'm not sure how that trace falls into that as far as
Probably unlisted around here,
pretty well listed.
is it on the ordinance though?
Oh, yes.
It lists on.
No, it's not on the ordinance.
That's why it
No.
does. Yeah, mine.
So.
But what do we need to do to take some of the, if you're interested in changing any of these things, what do we need to do to do that? What time frame, what do we need to do?
Carl, you have any thoughts on ordinance changing you want to share with us?
Carl Swanson, Big County Attorney. Just to provide some background, I spoke with Jacob yesterday at length, and I talked to Alan a little bit too. I was going to talk to Chuck about this. But I was provided some information by Brett Malinsky, who represents the developer in Hardin County. And to just give you a background of where they're at, I did speak with Hardin County Attorney yesterday also. They had an ordinance for wind energy conversion systems passed in 2012. 2017, there's a developer out there that's represented by the same law firm that represents the current owner here in Page County. They identified portions of Hardin County as potential site for 200 megawatt development. In 2019, the Hardin County Board passed a resolution that placed a moratorium on development permits. This I gleaned from the ongoing litigation in Hardin County through some pleadings there. Apparently the county was aware that there were around 100 agreements between landowners and this RC corporation. In August of 2020, Hardin County Board amended their ordinance, which substantially changed setback distances. And in talking to their county attorney, they also did a few things like we suggested here today, which is provide some additional protections for parks, nature areas. I don't know the details of their ordinance and how it changed. I just kind of a nutshell of it. So they made that change in August of 2020. September of 2020, RWE Energy filed a 4-count petition, and there's been this litigation that's gone on about a year. It's currently set for trial in April of this year. RWE Energy is claiming they spent about $2 million. My understanding from looking at things, they're not attempting to sue the county for $2 million. They're basically saying that the court should vacate the changes that were made in the ordinance. Now, Hardin County hired a firm out of Glen also that we used in the past, Ayers Boone. And there's a couple of attorneys there, Ann Schmizik, who's talked before, and Maria Brownell, who apparently is the lead attorney on this litigation. And so what I had suggested, when I talked to David about this, and Al also, is that we received another letter from Mr. Linsky Friday, and I forwarded it to all supervisors. And I would kind of do that as potential for litigation. My suggestion was that we go into closed session on the 22nd, discuss that with Ms. Brownell. I received an email today during this meeting. She's available on the 22nd if we want to do that, to kind of get a feel for how our situation is similar to Hardin County's and how it's different, and how to go forward with those changes we can make. So that's kind of a nutshell where Hardin County is. I think in talking to their county attorney, he seemed to indicate he thought that they were in a position that may be fairly good as far as their litigation, because there hadn't been any sort of application made by the wind energy company there. It was still sort of speculative in a sense. So they were thinking that in terms of this vested rights issue for their Hardin County, that that's kind of a fighting issue. Have the rights vested in this developer based upon this ordinance. I don't know how that would affect the existing ordinance here, and that's why I think it would be a good idea to talk to Maria Brownell about that in a closed session. So that's kind of my thought on the basics of that. I know there's a lot of suggestions on making changes, and that's for you folks as far as policymakers to decide good or bad, and whether they should be or not. But I just know that some of those changes are similar to what we're trying to make, and I said they've been involved about a year of ongoing litigation. I think they're waiting for a motion on a partial summary judgment by the county, which I think the county seemed pretty optimistic about, which would limit the number of issues that we go before the judge. It's not a jury trial, it's a bench trial. Judge will decide it. Any questions?
You say she's available?
I did get an email this morning on 8:45, but she's available on the 22nd. I had a jury trial going on the 22nd, but that got continued. So I'm available the 22nd also.
Well, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you want to coordinate a time that's best for her,
I can
then let the agenda know when we'll want to put that on the agenda for a closed session. That's okay,
I think we need to talk about.
Yeah, and that way we can know exactly, especially some of these questions regarding when and how we can change.
Right, and after these things, I believe can go backward, but if not, whatever, need addressed anyway.
Yes. No, I agree.
These issues, but I think it'd be a good idea that if they're strategically trying to bully us or intimidate us or anyway, we operate in light of day, and we might need to be in what we have in our proposal to talk privately and protect the county. Sure. We can do that.
Yeah, there's special, in the open meetings and open records laws, there's a special provision for either pending or threat litigation to go into closed session. And it just makes sense from a strategy point to have that discussion, not openly, but in a private session with counsel and your supervisors.
Are you okay with making that arrangement?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
Did I hear correctly that there was a letter from, is that what I heard?
Yes, a letter
From Brett Linsky, who represents the energy firm out there, firm down there.
and then the attorney.
Right, yeah. It's another Des Moines law firm, Byron and Frederickson and Byron law firm is who he's with.
So they threatened to sue.
It's intimidating.
Well, it could be viewed as potential threat litigation. I think it's enough to trigger the ability of the board to close to discuss strategy.
May I ask a question?
If somebody wants to ask afterwards, after the meeting, I think, but there's certain things that we're not allowed, probably shouldn't say, but if somebody individually wants to say something, that's fine, but we're closed for public comment at this time.
And on the topic, if I must say, just so we're clear about the process, Ms. Holman, when we have a public hearing, that's when the board will have a two-way conversation. In public comment, it is one way, it's our practice not to respond.
I understand, I was here for that public meeting in the evening. Yeah, I heard no answers.
I would like to say, since there are other people talking, that we would not be in this position of this lawsuit and litigation. We've been at this for 2 years asking for this common ground, and now here we are.
Discussion approving the amending the ordinance. I would say that we could table that, maybe put that on after our closed session. Would that be okay with you guys if somebody wants to make that? You did, I guess, make that suggestion to table that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And we'll just add that on the agenda after.
And we need to be moving quick because whenever this goes, the next plan is going to work trouble.
Did you get that? Yeah. Okay. Get those to vote on that. Okay. Board communication.
I'll come back. Turn off the new one, that guy's 10, like, that's a great time.
Oh, did you? Great.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
I did bring it.
Typically,
I know where it is.
two sessions you want to go to simultaneously, so he went to the
I
water.
grabbed the papers.
Okay.
The networking is always, I just want to say one, but as long as it got up there, but talking to other counties, going through some of these things that we're talking about right now. I talked to the supervisor of Hardin County out there, and you get a lot more face to face than you can get on phone. Sure. And to do what we do here, just talk to these other guys doing the same thing or doing, so. That was the biggest thing, there was a lot of good information. The ARPA money sounds like it's almost wide open.
It's close, yeah. It is close, a lot better.
Changed, and what I got out of it was 5%.
Yeah.
But what's your count, how many final rules?
No, it's the third final. Makes sense of that.
Do you think there'll be another one?
The fifth final. The whole thing's terrible, really, but it's money they bring.
You get the emails from ISAC on this and from, I just want to make sure you're getting everything. Okay.
And the day of the Capitol, did you get a chance?
I did not make that. I sent it to, I didn't make it.
I talked at length to our representative and a couple others that I have known over the years, and it doesn't sound like any substantive work's being done on the back of the bill or back of the blue that we've been concerned about. Under the current law, we're obligated to pay the sheriff at the rate that the police chief in Indianapolis paid. So, and we've asked for them to look at that, and they said they're looking at it, but I don't expect we'll see any adjustment at that point.
There were, I noticed a couple of changes on regarding the compensation board, a couple of ideas, and they're floating around, they're kind of obtuse, but one is removing it, the other is giving them more latitude about explaining everything and doing a presentation. It's a little bit of a agenda. My first meeting this month starts tonight, so I don't have anything else.
I don't have any meetings tomorrow with Council Bluffs. Got one on Monday, actually two on Monday, one in Atlantic and one in Oakland.
I think I'm gonna be over here Monday for Charles at functions, discussing some issues.
And then,
Yes.
the safety stuff on
Yes.
24th and 25th.
Yes, what?
Are you guys able to split that up to be, one can be here, one, this,
Which day?
I'm not gonna be able to.
Which day? Which day do you need this?
It's Thursday afternoon, from 1:30 to 3, or 1, let's see.
That's on Thursday.
24.
One, and you, I can do whichever, and you need
I
to.
can't remember, I can't remember what's going on.
Well, I've got.
Thursday the 24th, right?
I've got
Friday morning, the 25th.
I've got SWIP though, but I can.
Just Thursday night,
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's fine, what time?
On Thursday, Friday.
Thursday, that's what we, Thursday, what
Well, I think that's SWIP though.
what time is it?
Why don't you send us both the dates, and then you and I can touch base tonight or tomorrow? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can do whichever.
Yeah, I can't remember SWIP though. It's 24th.
Mark Shaver will be here both times.
Thursday times.
IWCA will be here probably Thursday afternoon. And we'll leave about Friday.
Does either one work for you, Jacob?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let me check this SWIP though and make sure, and then I'll respond back after Chuck's.
You have Hungry Canyon for next Friday, you don't have anything 24th.
What was that?
I have 100 games on Friday.
On
The
Friday?
next Friday.
The next Friday.
The first,
Oh, the-
not, you're
okay.
doing the 24th, 25th.
Okay, because I may do Thursday afternoon and, let you do Friday morning. Let's just plan on that, Jacob. Let's just, I'll be here at 1:30 and it's, where are we gonna
Well, it's gonna be up here. Hey, Angie, do you remember, was that safety meeting 1 to 3:30, or 1:30 to 3? It was 90 minutes.
I think I have it in my calendar. Hold on. Mine's 8:30 to 10 on Friday. I didn't write down.
8:30 to 10 on Friday,
So
so
I bet it's 1:30 to 3.
I think it is 1:30.
All
set.
new reason.
We're doing it together.
Train.
Okay. Claims are coming over. Carl, I'll just let you comment back. Okay. Yeah, 1:30 to 3, and 8:30 to 10, Jacob, on the 25th. Okay? Yeah, and if something comes up and you have a issue that Friday morning, I should do that one too if I need to. So.
And then